Alright, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to the Black Metal Rebellion. I'm your host, Jesse Morgan, aka Slammerella. So I feel like I've been trying to read this for, I don't know, 13 to 15 years whenever I got this thing, but finally finished the first book. And that is the Pulp Fiction Spider Master of Men novel, The Spider Strikes. So anyways, what did I think of the first Spider Master of Men Pulp Fiction novel? Considering it was written in the 1930s, it it actually reads pretty good. If you're not super young, you'll be able to read this and understand what's being said fairly easily. There's a couple of words in here that I was kind of like, I'm not exactly sure what that means, but reading the rest of this paragraph, I get the gist. So it wasn't too bad. I didn't have to look up too much. I think I might have had to look up maybe 3 or 4 words max the entire novel, so I'd say that's good. And the story is, once again, considering when this was written, it was good. Like, I could see why people back in the 1930s and 40s really liked these novels. They're mysterious, they're particular, they're full of very interesting intricacies that only the kind of adventurous ways and societal things going on at the time would kind of emphasize, would put into a novel. So with all that considered, it was good. I find that the book moves along at a fairly okay pace. There's a part or two in here that kind of drags, and as I find with a lot of novels, there's a little thing where the author seems to always want to over describe things. And I get it. Once again, I get it. If you're an author and you're really good with words and you're really good with language, you want to paint a nice, pretty picture using your words and show how good you are at writing, you are to the reader. But to me, I mean, I don't have ADHD or anything like that. I have a pretty normal attention span when it comes to people of my age. But even at times I'd be like, okay, can we move on? Can we stop describing the vases and the artwork on the wall and the women's dress and the cab and the boat? Like, stop it over to, like, we don't need, or I don't need an entire page or 3 pages describing what these things look like. I get it. I know what a boat looks like. I know what a woman's dress looks like. I know what a fucking fireplace and a mantle looks like. I get it. You don't have to perfectly describe it to me as if I'm fucking new to this world and have never seen that shit before. So, but other than that, it provided a fairly entertaining read and setup of the characters. You get to know the spider pretty decently right away. It starts on a boat coming from somewhere, I think overseas, coming to New York, with a setup of the spider finding this money launderer and kind of card shark kind of guy, screwing over this one dude out of his money, and he kills him and gives the money back to the dude, and then basically has to escape the room, get back to his room in the boat, and let his would-be girlfriend, I'm not sure if it's supposed to be his girlfriend or not, but it's a woman that he lives with, so I'm assuming, and she calls her and lets her know what's going on and that he'll be there soon or whatever. And then the chief of police or commissioner is a suspect of Richard Wentworth, aka the Spider, and thinks that he's the Spider, so he has his room searched and everything, but obviously Richard knows that it's coming, or as they call him, Dick. Back in the day, everyone called people named Richard Dick for some reason. I don't see the translation there from Dick to Richard, but whatever. So they had Dick searched, and they didn't find anything on him, and they reported back to the commissioner, like, okay. And for whatever reason, he's always suspected that Richard Wentworth is the Spider, but never could ever prove it. So he's constantly kind of questioning him and suspecting him of being the Spider and all of this kind of stuff. So it's kind of a recurring theme throughout the book that the commissioner is trying to inspect him and catch him in the act of being the Spider. And he's kind of like this rich, wealthy entrepreneur type with a pretty profitable business of some sort. I'm not exactly sure if they explain what his business in this is. He he's a collector of rare antiquities, so maybe that's part of it, because a vase goes missing in this that has some evidence connecting to the main bad guy in here. So yeah, that's where it starts off, and you already kind of get a sense of how it's going to go down, and it kind of tells you that there's a mastermind criminal that's almost as equally as intelligent and sneaky as Richard Wentworth is, and they're kind of going tete-a-tete, being mastermind criminal versus mastermind masked hero, and the plot moves along at a, like, once again, fairly decent pace. You get introduced to a few different characters here and there. Their relevance slowly becomes explained, and slowly but surely Richard Wentworth catches up with the main bad guy, as well as being accompanied by his manservant Rind Singh or something like that. He has a partner in superheroing or whatever, and he has some skills as well. A lot of the old Pulp Fiction heroes and comic book heroes did have partners or sidekicks. Like the Green Hornet had the Black Mask, the Crimson Avenger had his sidekick who wore the yellow outfit, and then there's the Spirit who had Ebony White or whatever his name was. So it all kind of follows along the same kind of trope in this. So the Spider has his own kind of servant who's also skilled at martial arts and knife throwing and shit like that. So both of those guys take on the bad guys, henchmen, and whatever throughout this, and while also kind of being a decent detective type story. So that also plays a big element of the story in the Spider. It's neat how they kind of show his detective skills and how his mind works and things that he notices that other people in the book don't notice. It's pretty cool. There's some detective elements for sure. There's some elements of mystery. There's some interesting moments where there's unexpected gore in here, where a homeless guy is disemboweled and you're like, oh wow, really? Okay. So there's some interesting parts in here that isn't just your normal detective story or old Pulp Fiction kind of novel. So it does have a few cool things in here that I wasn't expecting, but it is your basic bad guy who wants to destroy the world because he wants more power or more control, all the money or whatever. There wasn't too super duper complicated reasons why the bad guy is doing what he's doing. There's also a part in here, or a few parts in here, where the writer wants you to believe that Richard Wentworth is like really intelligent and really fast thinking, and that you would expect him to do certain things, but then there's parts where you're like, okay, well, if he's so smart, then why is he still standing there? Like at the very end, there's a part where he's talking about all these bullets are coming up through the ship that he's on called the Marianne, because the bad guys knows that he's there, so they're shooting up through the top of the floor, and he's like, oh, if I stay here any longer, they're eventually going to find their target, but also if there's any more firing, it's also going to alert the police, and he doesn't want to be caught by the police because he kills the bad guys. He doesn't just defeat them and do a citizen's arrest and let the police do anything. No, he fucking kills them and stamps their forehead for the most part with the spider sigil. So the red spider thing there. So he can't be caught by the police. He can't be caught by the bad guys, but the way it's being written, as if he's just kind of standing there thinking about all this while shots are being fired. I guess you're supposed to believe that this is happening really quick in his head and he's making these decisions, but the way it's being written is it's taking forever to be explained. So in my head, it feels like he's just standing there while all this is happening instead of moving or doing something about it. And then once the writer gets past that part in the book, he then kind of backpedals and says, oh, but Richard Wentworth wanted the police to show up now. It's like, so why were you making it seem as if he didn't want the police to be alerted because of the shots going off? Now all of a sudden he does want the police to be alerted so they can catch the bad guys and stop the ship from moving? I don't know. It seems like it was an afterthought on the writer's part. So there's a few gripes in it, but it's mostly good. So if I have to give this a rating out of 1 to 5 stars, I'm going to give it a 3.5. It was pretty decent. I enjoyed it for the most part. There were some parts that dragged. There was a couple of parts that seemed convenient on the writer's part to explain after the fact. And considering the time in which this was written, once again in the 30s, it was good for the time that this was made. So yeah, all things considered, really good book. Highly recommend you check out the Spider Master of Men. Maybe read this if you can get a hold of it somehow. Once again, there's still probably copies on Amazon or eBay of the reprints like this that are available, probably for not too much, maybe 10 bucks plus shipping, maybe less, or maybe a teeny bit more. So this is definitely a recommend from me. And then I'll have to go and read the second book, The Wheel of Death, which is got that image on the front, and which is the inspiration for the shirts I made on Redbubble. Definitely worth checking out. Hopefully you enjoyed this. So, yep, that's it for now. You've been watching the Black Metal Rebellion. For glory, for the Rebel Alliance, Slammerella out. Cheers.
Go